do you need a bow tie to be a physicist?
I think I've been asked this question before, but I can't remember where
Because
it's from.
every time we see you, always in your bow tie. I've never seen you in a necktie before.
You don't need a bow tie to be a physicist, because now I'm wearing a necktie, and I'm still a physicist.
Hello, we seem to have been you.
Professor, how are you, sir?
Oh yeah, I'm good. That was wonderful getting to see that interview before. I actually remember it quite vividly. So that was a wonderful interview last time. So unfortunately this time, have to leave like a slippery snail. So I don't have too much time on my hands, but I'm sure it's enough for lots of interesting questions to be asked.
And I assure I will be respectful of your time. Let me just say the last time you were here on Boca Raton TV, by the way, we were on Boca Raton TV back then. And just like you, we've moved up. So we have our own TV platform now. And again, just want to thank you for being here with us this evening, sir.
Oh, of course.
Before Brother John and I, ask you a few questions. These young ladies, they're in Costa Rica, and they're just going crazy, have been going crazy over your pursuits and your excellence, if you will. Young ladies, why don't you tell them?
Well, I interviewed you the last time you were on the show. So I was just telling Danny about how you were smart. She was. So yeah, we were talking about how he likes all the things that we hate. Yeah, honestly, this is very funny.
Now, Professor, what have you been up to, sir? I know I've been following you on the news, and there's a lot that you've been doing. Why don't you give us a brief update on what's been the latest?
So how long has it been? I think last time you interviewed me, it was early 2020 or so?
That's correct. That's correct.
So it's been more than 4 years since that time. So in that time, lots of things have happened. They're not nearly enough time. We'd be here all day if I were to cover all of them. But I think that most notably, I've been trying my best to get to the point with my education. So I've been trying to advance myself at the quickest rate possible. Actually, when you were interviewing me back then, I was still in I believe 3rd grade, right? So at that point, I was getting very bored of my classes. Not only were they online because the scary virus was starting to come around, but also the material there was not nearly as high level as I would have liked it to be. So I was just turning my camera off and doing other things during class. And that it just felt really boring to me. So when I moved up to 4th grade, we moved houses in November 2020, so and now we have this fancy new recording studio. So when we moved houses in November 2020, we left the old school district behind. So now we're with a new school district. And when I went to their elementary school, my 4th grade teacher said, "Hey, this kid is getting bored during class. He's doing great on all the exams. So maybe he just far ahead of everybody else. We should assess him or something." So
speaking of which, I'm glad you made that point. Speaking on the future of education, as a child prodigy, if you will, who has excelled academically, what are your thoughts, Professor, on how can we make advanced education more accessible and engaging, if you will, for children around the world? How can we make this possible?
Right, so there have already been lots of attempts to make that possible, and some of them I really enjoyed getting to see them. Now, there were no piece of education or content that is perfect for every single audience. But there are certainly pieces of education that are great for one specific audience, but somebody else might have no interest or motivation, or they might not even have the background to jump into such a piece of content. So in that same direction, or in that same vein, I think we have to have this kind of system that caters to everybody instead of being good enough. that caters to each single kind of person, every single kind of learner with all these different backgrounds, instead of being good enough for everybody, but not actually providing them that in-depth understanding. Now, actually, I haven't been able to express these feelings in my own words till now when I've heard it from somebody else, but I mean, there are lots of videos out there that talk about like the physics and chemistry of the real world without getting down into the nitty-gritty, the big details of it all. And I think, I mean, it's cool to hear about it and it gives you the motivation, sure, but it doesn't give you the feeling of actually doing math. And I think that's the most important part. And the feeling of doing math is really the thing that most people are scared of. They don't like actually getting into those details. They just like of hearing what's on the surface. So, although those educators are doing some things that are very noble, and they are even inspiring some people to actually get down to it, at the end of the day, it feels like they're not attacking the problem at its root. So that's what's still allowing the phobia of math to spread. So I think we should address this by not only getting into the details of the math, but also trying to cater to every specific audience instead of being good enough for everybody.
Professor, I mean, I'm glad to join you again, man. It has been a little bit since the last time you joined us on this show, and and I thank you for those words to Mr. C-Ron's question. The question I have for you just is more under the veins of challenges and motivation. So you've achieved so much at a young age. What has been the most challenging aspect of your journey, and what keeps you motivated to continue pushing the boundaries of your potential?
So that's a very interesting question, and that's a question that everybody needs to ask. So, what keeps you going on? And I feel like it's just that desire or curiosity to learn, that innate feeling of trying to look at everything in this world and say, how exactly does that work? From top to bottom, from inside to out. And that's the most valuable feeling, that gut feeling of intuition, understanding, curiosity, and inquisition that everybody should be armed with. Instead of just accepting it or explaining it away with some mundane reason, instead of actually getting in depth, just saying that is really not enough. For years, my brother was studying the question, why is the sky blue? It seemed like such a simple question, and many people are just going to search up some answer online. The most common answer you'll find online is Rayleigh scattering, but really it's so much deeper than that. There's like master's degree level physics that goes into this kind of stuff, and understanding it from top to bottom, understanding how it can be used in even the most simple facets of our life is really going to give you that intuition, that understanding of how the concepts that you talk about can be applied in the real world. And not only that, but that feeling of curiosity and inquisition. So that's what keeps me motivated, the ability to use this math and inquire about where it's used in the real world. I think that's something everyone should have.
Let's talk a little about, you mentioned, let's talk about interdisciplinary learning, Professor. Considering your expertise, if you will, in multiple scientific disciplines, how do you think interdisciplinary learning can contribute to solving complex global issues?
So that's a very interesting question once again. So I think that spreading out all of your skills in math, physics, chemistry, biology, etc. Now I'm only really, I would say, good at or have a significant amount of knowledge about math, physics, and chemistry. I don't think you could ask me about like biology or medicine. I'm not working on becoming a doctor, of course, but I think that those are some very important fields, and connecting your understanding between these fields, we don't need someone to spread out between, say, all 10 or 12 of them, but to be able to bridge between two fields, to find connections where you previously thought it impossible, is one of the most valuable skills. And so, I think that people like that who are interested in two subjects at the same time and manage to find this overarching connection that couldn't have ever happened before or couldn't have been imagined remotely. The people who find those kind of connections are the most important people when it comes to discovery. They're the people who lay the foundations of the next great breakthrough. And so I really respect them, and as they say, a jack of all trades is better than a master of one.
Professor, let's talk a little bit about inspiring the next generation. So what message would you like to share with other young learners who look up to you as a role model in the field of science and education?
Oh, of course. So everybody who is out there trying to learn about math and science, I know it's a very hard journey. There will be some ups and downs, some places where you feel like you just can't understand the material that's coming through to you. And I can feel that too. There were some places in my scientific journey where I just am like, okay, but how is that used? Why is this true? And I just can't seem to understand the reason behind it. Or I just generally feel demotivated from advancing in terms of math and physics. But whenever that happens to you, you have to get back up and you have to keep understanding. Maybe the resources that you're looking at aren't working for you. That's fine. That's not a problem with you. Maybe that's just a problem with your materials, your sources of learning. And that's the problem with having only one teacher. Maybe you should look at some other sources for your understanding. Consult your teacher for professional help. That doesn't work, reach out to, say, professors around a few universities. Yes, they respond to you. So, of course, it's very hard to, once again, comprehend lots of these scientific concepts. But you have to keep going despite all your doubts, because just sitting there is not really going to help you. But I can guarantee you, and you will find out yourself, that there is a very large purpose to all of this mathematical and scientific discovery.
You know, Professor, we're getting quite a few questions coming in, but in the interest of time and to respect your time, I'm going to ask you one last one. I heard through the grapevine that you plan to run for the leader of the free world in 2048. Am I correct? I want to be the first one to break the news on this channel if that's the case.
Right, so you got to tell me where that grapevine is. But anyway, other than that,
you know, if that's the case, though, which I'm sure it is, what changes or advancement, if you will, do you hope to see in the world by then, and how do you envision contributing to them as our leader?
So, of course, now that I understand more about the facets of government, now that I'm taking, a course in civics, I think that the president doesn't have, like, overarching power over everything. He's not the evil villain who, like, controls the U.S., but I think that the president, although they have limited power, is not only somebody who can advance legislative bills, say, but they can also compel the people. They can bring that message to the people that, hey, this is your time to rise up and do something. So that's the power that everybody has, every single president has been using for the last 250 years in the U.S. There's even a formal name for it, the bully pulpit. So I think that if I do decide to become president after all this time, I'm going to use that voice, that special voice that the leader of the free world has, to compel everybody around the world to say, hey, this is how you educate a generation. This is not just how you foster understanding and cooperation and civility throughout the U.S., but in the entire world. So I think that a model of education that caters to the individual instead of to the group is the most important model of education. And not just that, but to teach every single child, to not just approach math and science with a fixed perspective, but to be able to change it as new challenges face them. Those are the two biggest things that we have to innovate in. Those are the two biggest things that we have to figure out how to implement into our education system. Those are the two biggest things that I would campaign for if they aren't already added by 2048.
And you have the final thoughts, Professor. Closing thoughts.
Yeah, this was a great interview. It's nice to see you all again. It's wonderful to be here with you. Hopefully, you'll invite me back in the future, maybe 4 years from now. And I'll be able to share with you all the things that have happened since then. It's really wonderful to get to see you all. Some very interesting questions, despite their briefness, have been asked today. And so I would like to thank you, everybody, for listening. And I would like to thank KOP TV for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Professor.
Of course.
Thank you.